You think you know someone until they rip your heart out and walk away like it means nothing. That was my reality when I found out my wife Erica had been cheating on me. She didn't just betray me, she shattered the life we built together. My world came crashing down on a Tuesday afternoon. I still remember the exact words my friend said over the phone. "Derek, I don't know how to tell you this, but I've seen Erica with another man, and it doesn't look innocent." At first I didn't believe it. I mean, how could I? Erica and I had built a life together, or so I thought, although we faced financial difficulties at the moment. We had a house, 2 kids, and what I thought was a solid marriage. But deep down, something in me knew that what my friend was saying was true. I confronted Erica that same evening. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed to hear it from her. I asked her straight up, "Is there someone else?" She didn't even flinch. No denial, no tears. She just looked me in the eye and said, "Yes. And honestly, Derek, he can give me the life I deserve." I don't think I'll ever forget the coldness in her voice. It wasn't just the betrayal of her cheating, it was how easily she discarded everything we'd built together like it meant nothing. The worst part? She didn't just leave me. She took our kids, packing up their things while I stood there, too stunned to fight back. Her new man had money, real money, and she wasn't shy about reminding me of what I couldn't provide. I didn't just lose my wife that day, I lost my family. And when that door slammed shut behind her, I was left alone in a house that suddenly felt empty and suffocating all at once. Those first few months after she left were the darkest days of my life. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every argument, every moment I thought I wasn't enough. I blamed myself for everything. I wasn't just broken emotionally, I was drowning financially too. Erica took every dime we had in the joint account when she walked out, leaving me with nothing but overdue bills and a mortgage I couldn't afford. I don't know if you've ever been in a place like that, but let me tell you, it's terrifying. You start to question your worth. You wonder if maybe they were right to leave you, if maybe you really weren't enough. But here's the thing, rock bottom has a way of showing you what you're really made of. And that's where my story truly begins. As the days turned into weeks, I realized no one was coming to save me. If I wanted my life to change, I had to make it happen myself. I started small, taking whatever jobs I could find. I worked as a delivery driver during the day and cleaned offices at night. On weekends, I mowed lawns for neighbors and helped move furniture for extra cash. It was grueling and I barely had time to sleep, let alone think. But I clung to one thought: this was temporary. I told myself this is not where my story ends. I saved every penny I could. No fancy meals, no luxuries, just survival. Eventually, I scraped together enough money to take a chance on something I'd always dreamed of: starting my own business. It wasn't glamorous. In the beginning, it felt like the universe was testing me. There were days when I sold barely enough to cover my costs. Some weeks I couldn't even do that. I wanted to quit many times, but every time I felt like giving up, I reminded myself of how far I'd come. I couldn't go back to the man I was when Erica left. I refused to. Over time, I started to see progress. I reinvested every bit of profit into improving the business, better equipment, and even a small team to help. Slowly but surely, that business grew into something I could be proud of. What began as a desperate attempt to survive turned into the foundation of my future. I wasn't just building a business, I was rebuilding myself. Those long days and sleepless nights taught me resilience. I learned to face rejection without letting it break me, to find solutions instead of excuses, and to trust in my ability to create something meaningful. It took years, long, exhausting years, but I finally started to feel a sense of stability again. I wasn't wealthy yet, but I had enough to pay my bills, save a little, and even treat myself to small victories like a new pair of shoes or a proper meal out. More importantly, I had hope again. Then came the big break. A small interior design company discovered my work on social media. They placed a large order for custom furniture for a new apartment complex they were decorating. I'll never forget that phone call. It felt like the first real sign that things were finally turning around. That order wasn't just the biggest paycheck I'd ever seen. It was the opportunity one needed to show the world what I could do. Word of mouth spread, and soon more designers and businesses were reaching out. Within months, I went from struggling to make ends meet to running a fully fledged business. I had to hire a bigger team, rent a larger workspace, and manage contracts. It wasn't easy, but it was exhilarating. The bigger deal that changed everything came a couple of years later. A national chain of home decor stores wanted to carry my furniture in all their outlets. It was a deal worth millions, something I couldn't have even dreamed of when I was working alone in my garage. I signed the contract with shaking hands, not from fear, but from the overwhelming realization that all my sacrifices were finally paying off. With the newfound financial stability came something even more valuable: confidence. For the first time in years, I felt like I could hold my head high. I no longer saw myself as the man Erica abandoned. I wasn't the victim of her betrayal anymore. I was Derek, the self-made entrepreneur who rebuilt his life from scratch. Looking back, it wasn't just the money or the success that changed my life, it was the pride I felt knowing I'd done it on my own. Every late night, every rejection, every moment of doubt had been worth it. I wasn't just moving forward, I was thriving. I'll never forget the day Erica walked back into my life. It had been years since I last saw her, years of pain, anger, and hard work that finally paid off. After she left me for a wealthier man, I told myself I'd never let her or anyone else treat me like that again. And I didn't. It was a typical morning at the office. I was in the middle of reviewing contracts when my secretary buzzed in, her voice hesitant. "Mr. Derek," she said, "there's a woman here to see you. She says it's urgent." I frowned. My schedule was packed and I didn't have time for unexpected visits. "What's her name?" I asked. "Erica," she replied. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Erica? My ex-wife? I hadn't heard from her in years. Against my better judgment, I told my secretary to send her in. A part of me was curious, though I already had a sinking feeling about why she was here. When she walked into my office, I barely recognized her. Erica, who used to be so polished and confident, now looked worn. Her once perfectly styled hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, and the designer clothes she used to flaunt had been replaced with a cheap blouse and skirt. She sat down without waiting for me to offer, clutching a battered handbag like it was all she had left in the world. "Derek," she began, her voice trembling. I didn't know where else to go. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "I find that hard to believe," I said, keeping my tone even. She ignored the jab and launched into a story that sounded rehearsed. She told me how her life had fallen apart after she left me. The rich man she ran off with had abandoned her for someone younger, leaving her with nothing. She said she was struggling to make ends meet, that she couldn't pay rent, and that our kids were suffering because of it. "They need their father," she said, her eyes glossy with fake tears. "You've been absent for so long, Derek. Do you even know how hard it's been for them? For me?" Her words stung, but not for the reasons she probably thought. What hurt wasn't her accusation. It was the sheer nerve she had to show up after everything she did, acting like I was the one who abandoned them. I'd spent years grieving the loss of my family, thinking I'd failed as a husband and father. And now she dared to blame me? "I've been absent?" I said, leaning forward. "Erica, you took the kids and left me for another man. You cut me out of their lives. And now you're telling me this is my fault?" "They're your kids, Derek," she snapped, dropping the helpless act for a moment. "They need financial support and you're just sitting here with all this money, living your best life while we're struggling." I clenched my jaw, my mind racing. Erica had always been manipulative, but this was a new low. Still, I didn't want to let my emotions get the best of me. "What exactly do you want, Erica?" I asked calmly. She hesitated, then said, "I need money to support them. School fees, clothes, food, everything. It's your responsibility as their father." Her words felt like a trap. The way she emphasized father made it clear she was trying to guilt me. But something didn't sit right. The timing of her visit, the way she spun the story, it all felt too convenient. I didn't trust her, and I definitely didn't trust her motives. "I'll think about it," I said, keeping my expression neutral. Her eyes lit up for a moment, but I wasn't finished. "But first, I'll need some time to review the situation. I'll reach out when I'm ready." She looked like she wanted to argue, but I stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. Reluctantly, she grabbed her bag and left, but not before throwing one last parting shot over her shoulder. "Don't make them suffer because you're bitter, Derek." As the door closed behind her, I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the frustration bubbling inside me. I didn't believe a word she said, but I also knew I couldn't ignore the situation. Erica's reappearance in my life was like opening an old wound. Her sad story about how her life had fallen apart, how her so-called better option had abandoned her, leaving her to fend for herself, and the kids left me conflicted. After all, these were the kids I'd helped raise. How could I turn my back on them? But something about her story didn't sit right with me. She painted herself as a victim, but her actions didn't match her words. She was too quick to accuse me of being a deadbeat dad, claiming I had abandoned them all those years ago. I knew the truth: she had left me. She took the kids, packed her bags, and ran off with someone she thought had more to offer. Now she wanted to rewrite history, making me the villain in the eyes of the kids. But what pushed me over the edge was how she began using the kids as pawns as we reconnected. She fed them stories about how I didn't care about them, how I was this cold, selfish man who only looked out for himself. The kids, young and impressionable, started to believe her. It hurt more than I can describe, seeing them look at me with doubt in their eyes, thinking I had abandoned them when all I had ever wanted was to be there for them. It was during one of those sleepless nights, staring at the ceiling and replaying everything in my head, that a thought hit me like a ton of bricks. Are they really mine? I hadn't allowed myself to ask that question before. Maybe I didn't want to know. But now, faced with Erica's lies and betrayal, I couldn't ignore it any longer. So, I decided to find out. Quietly, without telling Erica or the kids, I arranged for a DNA test. I collected what I needed and sent it off, trying to prepare myself for whatever the results might be. Still, nothing could have prepared me for what came next. When the results arrived, I read them 3 times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. None of the children were biologically mine. Not one. I sat there, staring at the paper, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. These were the kids I had loved, provided for, and worried about for years. And now I was being told that they weren't even mine. I was angry at Erica for deceiving me, angry at myself for not seeing the truth sooner. But most of all, I felt this overwhelming sadness for the kids. They were innocent in all of this. They didn't ask to be born into a web of lies, and they didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of Erica's manipulation. As much as I wanted to storm into Erica's face with the truth, I knew I couldn't let my emotions take over. The kids were already caught in her games, and the last thing they needed was more chaos. I decided to take a step back and think. I needed a plan, not for revenge but to protect the kids from further harm and ensure they knew the truth without it shattering their world. I sat Erica down privately in the living room when I came visiting, just the 2 of us. I didn't want to make a scene in front of the kids. I held the DNA results in my hand, those few sheets of paper that would change everything. My heart was pounding, but I knew this moment was long overdue. I slid the papers across the table toward her and said, "Erica, we need to talk about the truth. These tests, they show I'm not the biological father of any of the kids." My voice was calm, but there was no mistaking the seriousness of my tone. For a moment she just stared at the papers, her face blank. Then, like flipping a switch, she burst into laughter. "What are you trying to prove, Derek? Do you think this changes anything? You raised them. They see you as their father. What kind of man even does a DNA test on his own kids?" I wasn't surprised by her reaction. I'd known Erica for years. Her ability to twist the truth into a weapon was second to none. But I wasn't here to argue. I took a deep breath and said, "This isn't about me. This is about the kids. They deserve to know the truth. You've used them to manipulate me, and that stops today." She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and smirked. "So what's your plan, Derek? You're going to abandon them now? Prove to everyone you're the deadbeat I said you were?" I shook my head. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I love those kids and I always will. But this," I gestured at the papers. "This is your lie, Erica. It's time for you to own up to it. Tell them the truth." But she refused. "I'm not telling them anything. And if you try, you'll ruin their lives. You think you're the hero here, Derek? Go ahead. Tell them. Watch them hate you for it." I looked at her for a long moment, realizing that she would never change. She'd rather drag everyone down with her than admit she was wrong. I stood up and said, "If you won't tell them, I will. And I'll do it the right way." Later, after that conversation, I sat the kids down in their room. My chest felt heavy, but I owed them the truth. "I need to talk to you about something important," I began. "First, I want you to know that I love you. Nothing will ever change that." They looked at me confused. I could see the worry in their eyes. I held up the DNA results and explained as gently as I could. "These tests show that I'm not your biological father. I didn't know until recently, and I want you to hear this from me, not anyone else." Their faces shifted from confusion to shock. One of them, my oldest, asked quietly, "Does this mean you don't want us anymore?" That broke me. I leaned forward and said firmly, "No. Never. You are my kids in every way that matters. Nothing about that changes because of a test. I will always be here for you." The room fell silent. I could see they were hurt and confused. They didn't know what to make of the truth, and I didn't blame them. All I could do was be there for them, no matter how long it took for them to process everything. As for Erica, her lies caught up with her. She couldn't manipulate me anymore, not with the kids or anything else. Legally, she had no claim to my money, and I made sure she knew it. I set up trust funds for the kids to cover their education and well-being, but Erica wasn't getting a dime. She had to face the consequences of her actions alone, with no safety net to fall back on. I, on the other hand, finally found peace. I'd done everything I could for those kids and protected myself from further harm. Looking back, I realized that letting go of Erica wasn't just about freeing myself from her lies, it was about making space for something better. For the first time in years I felt free.